What's going on YouTube? Welcome to episode 148 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And new subscribers, don't forget to join the Discord. I'll have a link in the description below. But anyway, let's kick back, relax, and jump right into today's episode. We've actually got a very long one. We've got about an hour and 19 minutes. Now, you're probably asking me, why are you doing a video that's so long today? Normally, you only do maybe an hour at the max. Well, that's very true. But I decided when I was editing these videos that I realized that I had spent more time on the revisions to the engines than I had necessarily intended to. And I basically didn't want this to turn into a 2-week project just to work on the engines. So I've just decided that, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and rock this out, and we need to just jump into this right now because we got to get going here. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. Got a lot to do. We're looking pretty good so far, but we need to get this thing to where it's lined up with half slabs. So I think what we'll do first is that we're just going to add in our red outline in the middle. That will be our red warp tube that's in the front of the ship. And once we have that in place, then we'll be able to start really blending everything in together, because that's going to be one of the challenges with this, is blending in the half slabs with the full slabs and making it look like we intended to do this from the get-go. But what I can tell you, that even though that we're taking up a much significant amount of time today, in today's episode, it'll be worth it, because by the time that we're done with today's episode, we will have the new shape of the front of our engines completed, and I think you guys are actually going to love this. This was one of those things where it's like, I wasn't necessarily wanting to revisit the engines, but I had this idea in my head. And you guys know me, when I get an idea in my head or something that I want to do, it's just going to sit with me until I do it. And I'm actually very, very, very happy with how the front of the engines came out. I was so happy with it, I'm not going to lie, for a second I considered, like, well, you know what, maybe I should apply this pattern to the whole engine. But I was like, you know what, I don't need to, because it works with where it's at. And you know, sometimes less is more. That's definitely a thing. You know, you don't want to overdo it and make a change just to make a change. Anytime I make a change on my builds, it's because I feel that the build needs it. But if it doesn't need it, I'm not going to change it just for the sake of doing, because then that's going to be a significant amount of work just to say that we did it. And I'm not really about all that. So again, you know, we're going in, we're adding a couple of rows of our red concrete, and then we're going back and we're adding a couple more rows with our half slabs. So we're kind of going back and forth here. We're doing a combination of moving forward with our red full blocks, but then slowly moving backwards with our half slabs, because we have to make all of that work. And we're going to have to make some revisions to the full blocks as we go back, because with the pattern that we have with the half slabs, it's not going to mesh in fully with our full blocks. But we'll address that when we get there. Actually messed up right there. Let's fix that real quick. That's looking pretty good. Now, one thing that you probably notice what I'm doing right now is I'm only doing a little bit at a time, and then I'm going back and forth between the two engines. This is a very wise thing that you should be doing as well, because especially since I'm making these changes or making these subtle, or not necessarily subtle changes, but making very drastic changes to the front of the engines. Want to make sure that we're going back and forth between the two sides as much as we can, because you don't want to work on one side so much to where you basically lose your place and you forget exactly what you did. That again is the main reason why I go back and forth the way that I do, because it helps eliminate errors. Now, I'm not going to say like, oh, you know, my ships are perfect. No matter how perfect you are, you're going to run into errors. It's inevitably going to happen. You could be paying attention to everything that you're doing and still make a mistake. You know, at the end of the day, it's really not a big deal. We're all human. We all make mistakes. There's no way to avoid that. But doing it in this way can help eliminate that as much as possible. And that's really the main reason for doing it. Now, the only setback to that is that we're kind of moving at a snail speed right now, because we keep going back and forth. We're doing just a little bit on one side and then hopping over to the other. But that's kind of how we've done some areas in this whole build and all of my builds, you know. Again, you know, slow and steady wins the race. This isn't a competition. You know, I see people that they'll do like a mega build and they're like, oh, I built this in a weekend. It's like, hey, that's cool, you know, but I'm one of those people that if I'm going to be putting my time into making something so massively large, I would rather it come out great, and it takes a little bit of time, you know. Quality over quantity, that's what I always say. And again, you're probably trying to, if you're trying to figure out how I'm coming up with my placement right now for my red blocks, I'm just going with the cut line again. I'm following my cut line. This is honestly the main reason why I get so many people asking me, hey, what's your blueprint? What did you download to build this thing? Because it really looks like you're looking off something. And the truth of the matter is, I am looking for something, but I'm looking at the pattern of the blocks. You stick with that pattern. I can't stress that enough, that, you know, that's an asset to when you're building, because it can help guide you in the direction that you need to go into. Now, you know, again, going with a pattern or going with a cut line, it's not for everybody. You know, everybody's going to have their own way in building. You know, there's 1,000,001 ways to build these ships. This is just really what's worked out best for me. I've built several builds on Minecraft at this point, and I've done them all in different ways, right up until I realized that going with a cut line and going with patterns is just the way to go. I feel like you get a much more cleaner design when you do it that way. You can see definitely where this is starting to go. You're not going to see it so much back here, but again, we're starting from the front and we're working our way, we're going forward with the red and slowly working our way back with the half slabs. But we have to do this row here and this row here to make it blend. Once we make it blend, this is going to look a lot better than it currently does. I promise you that. Now, those of you are probably asking, like, well, you know, what about your yellow strip that's back here and the blue on the sides? It looks like it's a lot further back. Don't worry, we'll address that. We'll move it up some. We haven't gotten to that part yet. Really, what I'm mostly focused on right now is just the shape. Once we get our shape in place, then we can make adjustments to our details on the engines. That block's got to be up by 1. There we go. You can see again, going with the cut line, adding in another row here, but we can only go so far with it. And also bear in mind, once we get the front of the red in, we can always clean up the front a little bit more if we have to. Really, I'm just trying to foresee kind of how this is going to go. And I'm not going to lie, that can be a hit and miss. You might have to make some slight revisions once we get the front of the engines built in. It might end up working out perfectly. It's just one of those things where we just kind of have to see how the build comes out. I think, if I recall from building this, I think we actually end up being in pretty good shape once the front of it's done. But right now I'm really just trying to anticipate how the shell of the front of the engine is going to meet up with our full red block or concrete blocks. Because as you can see right here, we've got a little bit of a gap, so that's why I'm adding in more rows in the front here. Doing stuff like this takes a little bit of being able to see things in your mind, or see things in your head. That's the best way I can describe it. I think about this stuff, you know, in between the build and also while I'm working on it. I try to think of how it's going to ultimately look going forward. If you have trouble seeing things in your mind like that, another thing that you can do, and I'm not gonna lie, I do this myself, is drawing it out. If you suck at drawing it out, do it in paint on the computer with the blocks. It can be done. You know, work up a diagram, plan it out if you have to. But having that plan can help you out a little bit too, if you have trouble doing stuff like that. Like I said, being able to see things in your head as far as how it's going to look. This isn't looking too bad though. It's elongating the front a little bit more, what I was wanting, but I think that we've gone out maybe just one too far, so I think we're going to make a slight change to this, because you don't want it to be super long. And this is again why we take our time, because you do it a little bit at a time, you can better gauge how it's going to look, especially when you can start to kind of foresee it in your mind how things are going to go. You can start to anticipate what you need to do. This is the best way I can describe it. You know, I always try to talk about my process as much as I can. Hopefully this stuff makes sense to you guys, because this is honestly just the things that I think about when I'm working on my builds, and I've tried to make a point to talk about all these things to try to help out people that are working on their own Enterprise D. Maybe they're having trouble with it. Chances are, if you've come across this tutorial and you're watching it, more than likely it's because you want to build your own Enterprise D and it's not coming out the way that you want it to, or maybe you're looking for other ideas, you know. But again, even if you're just looking for ideas, having these thinking about these different things for your build, it's going to help you out a lot. It really is. And getting back into our build here a little bit, I think we went just a little bit too far forward, so we're going to take off another row. We're going to slice that off. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay to backtrack at where we're at right now. You know, I'd rather do it now while we're still working on it than, again, finishing it up and realizing that, you know, this is just too long, we need to make an adjustment to it. I'd rather do it right now. Because it's not giving me that angled cut going up and backwards that I'm looking for. Because you guys don't see it, but what I have on one of my other monitors right now is I have a picture up of my Enterprise D while I'm building this, and then I have my 3D model to look at. So I'm again directly referencing my source material to help me to get this build where I need to get it to. You know, it's funny why I do things the way that I do. A lot of this has to do with the artist in me, from when I used to draw quite a bit when I was a little bit younger. And one of the things that really helped me draw to become a better artist was I used a lot of reference material. I'd pull up tons of pictures, and having those, whether you directly use them as a reference or just loosely use them as a reference, to kind of take you in a direction that you want to go into. It can be very, very helpful to get just that extra detail that you might not have had without that reference. So this very front row, you can see we're bringing it back, and then we're we're probably going to end up deleting the front 2 rows here. Yeah. This will give us much more of that cut line that I was talking about, the gradual cut line going up and back. So we're moving it back by 2, and then we're going to delete the front 2 rows. So it's pretty much keeping that very first row that we're filling in. I'm doing it this way because I honestly feel that it's faster to do it this way than, well, actually it's not faster. I could just go down this row right here and just build straight back. So that's something that you can do too, because again, you know, every time I do something isn't necessarily always the right way to do it, just how I end up doing it in that moment. But I think what I could have done here, maybe go just a little bit faster, is just bring this row all the way over and then back. This way I'm not having to backtrack so much, deleting all this stuff that I'm adding in just to get that original row in. You see we haven't deleted any of the red yet. We'll address that in just a few moments. And you know, again, this is just nothing more than an idea of what you could change on your ship. If you're happy with how your engines look, I mean, discard this episode and just move on to, or just wait until the episodes come out when we're not working on the engines anymore. But that's kind of how I've approached this whole build, you know. If I want to change something on my ship, I try to include it in the tutorial, because at the end of the day, everybody's different. Everybody has different tastes, different things, or different techniques, different ways that they build things. And I think it's important to show these things, because maybe something that I changed on the ship ends up being something that somebody really liked. So that's why I try to keep those in, so this way you get a little bit more of a variety of how to do something. In this case with the engines, we've got 2 variations of building out the front of our engines, doing it with full blocks, and now converting those full blocks into half slabs. Alright, so let's repeat the same process on this side. And while this is going, I need to catch up, like I was saying in episode 147, I need to get some episodes out for my reviews of Strange New Worlds. I didn't have them out. I'm a little bit behind because when I was taking a short vacation, but I'm honestly glad that I took a little bit of a break from doing them, because when I started watching Strange New Worlds, I'm not going to lie, I absolutely loved the show. And I just want to say ahead of time that I still actually really enjoy Strange New Worlds. But I think that for me anyway, the honeymoon is over, and I'm starting to notice things about the show. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I'll probably talk about it more in depth when I do the reviews. But I'm curious to get other people's opinion on this. For those that have watched Strange New Worlds, I've noticed a lot of the episodes anyway, they really remind me of episodes that the Next Generation has done already. And not that that's a bad thing. I read a review that somebody said the other day that Strange New Worlds was basically like a hybrid of the original series and Next Generation, which is probably true, because I know that there's been some episodes where they've directly copied episodes from the original series. I know there have been a few where they've copied from Next Generation. But kind of where I'm getting at with that is that, you know, I don't want to see them copying previous shows too much just to make it feel like Star Trek. And this is not against the show. I think that they've done a good job with Strange New Worlds, and I'm really not trying to knock the producers and writers of it, but it really seems like they have trouble writing Star Trek to make it feel like Star Trek, and the only way that they can do that is just by replicating exactly what's come before without telling some new stories, but within the same spirit of Gene Roddenberry. it's really not hard, and I'm pretty sure that Paramount has the manual that Gene Roddenberry wrote on writing a perfect Star Trek episode or movie. That's really all that they need. Now, if they want to implement a little bit more of Next Generation, I seriously don't understand why they haven't hired Ronald D. Moore, maybe to come in and write some of the show for Strange New Worlds. I mean, if those of you that are younger, you may not be familiar with him, but he was a great writer. He wrote Next Generation. He also wrote the Battlestar Galactica remake that was on Sci-Fi years ago. I mean, he really is a great writer, and he gets Star Trek. I think that's somebody that they could maybe tap. I don't know if he'd have anything new to do, but I'd imagine that he would. But I think that's like, now that I've had a chance to let Strange New Worlds kind of marinate, that's kind of where I'm getting at on it, where I like it, but it feels more like a replication rather than something that was a little bit more original. Because, like, somebody can make the argument like, oh, well, that's what they did with Next Generation. And to be honest with you, I disagree. I think that Next Generation, they had a couple of themes here and there that were obviously based off of themes and ideas from the original series, but Next Generation really kind of did its own thing, in my opinion. But still, at the end of the day, it felt like Star Trek. It didn't feel like they were just kind of going back and watching episodes of Next Generation and be like, ooh, that's a good idea for an episode. Let's just go ahead and do that. And it just goes into the writers that they currently have that are working on Star Trek, that you can tell that they don't understand it. They don't understand what Star Trek is. They don't understand what it represents. And they're just trying to do something to appease the core fan base. But I mean, that's kind of where I'm going to leave it, because I don't really want to get too much into it, because I want to leave some of this for the reviews. But and a plus, Strange New Worlds has been great. I've been enjoying it. I really have, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to be doing going forward. Not only with Strange New Worlds, I know that the next Kelvin movie is getting ready to start shooting. I was just reading something the other day that they're pretty close to starting it. But, even with the Kelvin universe, I've got some things that I would like to see. I don't know if it's going to happen, because it really seems like, with the movies anyway, it's all about who the next villain's going to be to try to maximize the profit. But, I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like that ship has sailed for Star Trek. Because it's like, how many times can you do the same thing before it gets old? This is kind of one of the reasons why I didn't agree with what Chris Pine said, that you can't have a cerebral Star Trek. I disagree. I think you can have a cerebral Star Trek, but it has to be really, really good. As at the end of the day, you're not going to win over the general audience. You either love Star Trek or you don't love it. And I think that's something that some of these other movies that have come out over the years have kind of suffered a little bit, because they try to make something for the general audience instead of the core fan base that have kept that movie or show going, and then it ends up bombing out. And it's like, well, you didn't listen to your fans. You listened to people that don't like it and said, hey, maybe do this and maybe I'll be interested. It's not a knock, but the 2016 Ghostbusters is a perfect example. They made that movie for people that had no interest in watching Ghostbusters, and then they told the fans of Ghostbusters that if they didn't like it, they were this, that, or whatever, or people that didn't like women and stuff like that. And I gotta be honest, I actually liked the cast that they had for the female Ghostbusters. I thought that the women were very funny, but I think that it's like with Man of Steel with Superman. It's like they remade that movie, but imagine if when they remade Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder, if they had the original Superman theme, and Krypton looks the way it does in the Christopher Reeves movies, and the Fortress of Solitude was Christopher Reeves, but then they change a bunch of other stuff. It's like, why did you even bother taking some of these elements. You just should have done something that was your own. This feels more like taking something away rather than actually doing a new take on it. So I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts on it. You know what I did see recently? I saw it last night. The new Jurassic World. I've been reading reviews on that movie, and like the people have just been tearing it up. And I got to tell you, I actually really enjoyed the new Jurassic World. If you're a fan of Jurassic Park, I highly recommend checking that movie out, because it really connects back to the original themes of the original. And that's where it's in the sense that it's a direct sequel to the original Jurassic Park, because it goes right back into that line that Ian Malcolm said about unchecked genetic power and what that means, and unchecked corporations that are greedy. I thought it was a great movie, but the thing for me that really sold the new Jurassic World was bringing back the legacy cast and having an organic, good reason for them to be there, and not just to show up to, you know, sell some tickets, and not just showing up to kind of pass the baton onto the Jurassic World cast. They actually had a reason for Malcolm, Ellie, and Dr. Malcolm being back, and I loved it. And I really, I won't spoil it for anybody, but the storyline with Ellie and Dr. Malcolm, I absolutely loved it. I give the movie probably like an 8.5 to 9 out of 10. There are a couple minor things about it that I wasn't crazy about, but I won't talk about them now because I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody. But anyway, getting back in what we got going on here, you can see we're looking pretty good. We're going with our cut line here to try to make this match up, and that's all you have to do here. Follow your cut. Now that more of the front is getting filled in here, hopefully this will give you a good gauge of how the back of, or how we're going to work in some of the back of this piece, because we've only done the front so far. We have to, the best way I can describe it is that we're going to go up to that yellow line. I think we're going to bring it back to that, or maybe right before that, but we'll be adding in some more half slabs to blend it in just a little bit better than what we currently have. And I think what we're going to do now is that we're just going to fill in the red. Again, going with our cut line. As long as you follow your cut, you can't make a mistake right here. See how that looks? That's looking pretty good, but I think it needs to be brought out a little bit more. I don't know why, but the way the engine looks in the front, specifically with the red, it reminds me more of the Enterprise C than the Enterprise D. This red bulb needs to be brought out. This doesn't look bad. It looks cool, but it reminds me of the Enterprise C. So the easiest way to fix that without doing a whole bunch of work is just to fill in our red gaps in the top and bottom. And then maybe we'll add in a 2x2 row in the very middle to bring it out. Or hey, you know, if you like how this looked, you could always leave it this way too. This is again one of the reasons why I show all this stuff, so you guys can see some of the different ways that you can do this. But yeah, you know, like what's sticking out to me at this point is looking at the reference material, this red bulb, it comes out a lot more than what is currently coming out on my build, and that's what's kind of sticking out with me. And even like I said, we're going to leave this, I'm not fully happy with it, but I'm kind of at a point where there's not really that much I can do about it based off of the scale that we're building this at. If I made the red any bigger than it currently is, I think I would run into some problems, and it wouldn't look right. Because I could be wrong, but actually no, I think I had actually tried to do something off camera to test it out, this was after this episode, and it didn't end up working right. So what we end up with today is what we're going to stick with. And don't worry about this row right here in the back, how that's sticking out. We'll kind of address that a little bit. But this is where I was saying what we're going to do. Now we're going to add in a 2x2 row of red, an extra layer going outwards to see how that looks. Hopefully this will look better than what we have. I know I'm kind of throwing a lot at you guys today because, again, this is an hour and 20-minute episode. We're only at 29 minutes, but we're kind of going by pretty fast. We've got 51 minutes to go. If you need to pause this and take breaks as you go, feel free to do it. But this isn't something you're going to see me do all the time. I'm only going to do long episodes when I feel that I really need to do them. And I really just wanted to get this done because I think there's a couple of episodes after this that we're going to be working on the engines. I think there's 2. And this is, again, I didn't want to have a 2 or 3 week period where we were just working on this. So that's kind of where I just bit the bullet. I was like, you know what? We're just going to do one really long episode. And if you need to pause the video and take breaks here and there, or take a couple of days to get through this episode, do it, you know, because I didn't build this all in one setting. This was done in a couple of episodes. Now, see, that right there, that looks a lot better. But I think... being completely honest with you, maybe what we should do is now add another row on the top and bottom. Basically repeat what we just did. Add another row of red on the top and bottom, and then bring it out again by one more, just to give it more of that bulb that it has in the front. But now you can really see where I was talking about this arch that it has. We're really developing that arch in the front here. It's there. Now we just have to bring that back to here and make it feel like one piece. But hopefully now you can see where this is going to go. And this is really going to help sell the ship, because this is where I talk about, you know, focus on your details. Focus on the moments. Focus on the things. All these little details that help bring your ship to life. And the engines on the Enterprise D is such an iconic part of it. It's really something you got to nail it. This is why we spent so much time on the engines. This is why we spent so much time on the saucer. This is why we spent so much time on the deflector dish. Because we need to get these things right so that this way, when we show off our ship, you know, it really screams Enterprise. And not only does it scream Enterprise, it looks like it. Because, you know, you can have something that reminds you of it, but maybe the build didn't come out that good, and it just doesn't really look like it all that much. I mean, that can happen. This is, again, why we take our time to do it right. Because I found that if you take your time, you're much more likely to come up with something that looks better than somebody that just shotgunned it in an afternoon or a weekend. Yeah, see, this is going to kind of add that bulb, that, you know, that bulge in the front of the red bulb in the front. But now I've shown kind of 2 different variations of doing this. But again, we're literally just repeating the same thing that we did earlier, but we're bringing it out by an extra layer to try to give it just a little bit more of that bulge and see how it looks. But we don't really want to go too far out from where we're at right now, because you don't want to make something that's too big. You know what I mean? And if this ends up looking too big, we can always, you know, bring it back a little bit if we need to. It's always an option. I think that looks pretty good. I feel confident enough that we can just hop over to this side and do the same thing. Actually really excited to show this off because I had posted pictures of this on the Discord. I think at this point it was like 4 months ago or something like that when I actually did it, because like I said, I'm a lot further along than you guys are, so I'll do something, I'll record something, but you guys really, you're a couple of months behind me where I'm at live in the build. This is another reason why you should definitely join my Discord, because I post screenshots of my builds in real time. So those of you that are wanting a sneak peek to see where things are going to be going with the build, I post them on the Discord under, I think I posted under current build projects. Yeah, but see that right there, that looks a lot better. It has that nice bulge that the red has in the front. So I think now we're going to get ready to move this stripe up a little bit, and then we're going to start to blend in the rest of our half slabs so that we can call this thing a done deal for today. We're not doing anything fancy, we're just taking off 3 rows going forward from our yellow strip. You can see I didn't go back, I haven't deleted anything in the center. That is one thing about this build. Well, I'm not gonna lie, this is how it's been with all my ships. The scale that I build them in, we just don't have enough room to get inside of the engine. So I don't do an interior for the engines, because at the end of the day it's just going to be wasted. We'll never ever see it. So that's why I haven't deleted any of the old access from the old engines. If you went back and, you know, in the very front of my engines and cut a hole and just went straight back, you'd be able to see all 3 versions of the front of my engines that we've done over the 3 revisions that we've made so far, because we just covered them up, which is something you can definitely do to help you save a little bit of time. Alright, so now that we've gotten that side done, we're going to do the same thing over here. I need to fill this in the front, which I did not do. Actually, I'm not going to lie, I think that we're actually going to be getting rid of this row, but I don't think I was necessarily sure that I was going to be doing that at this point in the episode. I just wanted a nice clean line, so I made my cut here. There was nothing to be confused about. So while this is going, one of the things I've been kind of curious about, I'm not necessarily curious, but I'd like to have a few more people making suggestions or things that they'd like to see me build on Minecraft. I've got my Discord up, and you guys can actually go on there, and there's an area called Build Suggestions, where you can vote on things that you'd want to see me do in Minecraft. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I have seen a few people where they'll come on and they'll like add like 3 or 4 things under one suggestion. I'm actually deleting those posts because I didn't intend my vote system to be set up to where you could do or just have 3 things on there and then I'm going to do all 3 of them. So if you do go on there, make sure that you just put 1 suggestion. Now you can have multiple, but they can't be under the same post, and I want to do it that way so that this way it's a little bit more clean. But no, I'm always thinking about what I'm going to be doing in the future going forward, and I've got a nice lineup of some things in the foreseeable future, and then some other things down the road. Like in the foreseeable future, we've got our direct next build after the Enterprise D, which will probably be Voyager unless something changes, and then we've got the Star Trek Beyond Enterprise A refit that I'll be doing once we hit 1,000 subscribers. We've got a real model that we'll be building based off that ship. That'll be coming out here shortly, but you know, what's some other things that you guys want to see me do? What's some other ships? Doesn't even necessarily have to be ships. Honestly, it can be anything sci-fi, science fiction related, or pop culture related. Um, you know, I read comic books, movies, all that stuff. So, I mean, if it's something that you guys want to see and I have enough people asking for it, I'll do it. Now, if it's something that's not necessarily as popular, you know, still make that suggestion, but don't get upset if nobody else votes on it. Um, but that's something that I kind of want to keep going on my channel because I really want to try to get people involved where I can. And I think having the build suggestions is the way to go. Now, I do have other builds that I've been toying with doing. I actually have a couple of different folders on ships that I fully intend to build. I just honestly don't know when it's going to happen. And one of the things I actually liked about Star Trek Picard Season 2 is that they brought the real Starfleet back, and they had different ship classes. And I actually thought it was pretty cool that they remade previous ship classes. Like, they brought back the Excelsior class, and, like, they, you know, kind of redesigned it within the Next Generation era. And I actually really liked how that ship turned out. That's a ship that I'm going to be building at some point. I just don't know when it's going to be. Another ship that I fully intend to build, I saw it somewhere, I saw the concept art, and I actually really like the ship. But one of the original concept designs for the Reliant from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, I think it's called the U.S.S. Bozeman. I think I'm going to end up building that at some point because it's just a really cool looking ship. But again, you know, I'm not quite sure when that's going to be, and I'm kind of also putting out feelers to see how maybe people feel about that stuff, to see if they'd be interested in it. But yeah, you know, I'm definitely thinking about that stuff going forward. We'll just kind of have to see where it falls, and we'll get back into that in a few minutes, but I want to talk about this a little bit with our build. You see that we've stretched out our yellow line. We're going to have to move, we're going to have to add a couple of rows to the front of it, I think, to blend it in a little bit better, because right now it just looks a little bit too long. And now we're going to go make 3 cuts here and then fill that in with the red. Alright, and now we're just going to repeat that same process here. Let's bring the yellow forward a couple, 3 more blocks, and then we'll come back and we'll stretch our sides of the red by 3, and then we'll move on from there. But no, you know, going back into it, I'm always thinking about what my next builds are going to be. So, you know, even though I've got my current poll going on right now, this is one of the reasons why I want to, you know, really gauge the community and get people's feedback on things that they'd like to see me do, because I want to be able to generate new polls going forward. So definitely go on the Discord and go under build suggestions, add your suggestion. Now if you're already on the Discord, upvote the ones that you like. This way this will give me a gauge on what people want to see, and what I'll end up doing is the top requests I'll end up putting in a poll like I have right now under next ship build poll, so this way people can vote on what my next build will actually be. Unless I have like so many upvotes on like a particular ship, I might just forego doing another poll and having it in there again. I might just end up doing it. So you never know. Go on there and vote. This way your voice can be heard on what you guys want to see, but I'm really trying to kind of stick to what the community wants to see, doing a combination of that, and I'm actually messing up right here. I should be going down 1 row with the cut line, and I'm not doing that, so I need to fix that. But no, I really try to do a nice combination of doing what the community wants to do and then some builds that I'm passionate about. But you know, at the end of the day, not every single suggestion is going to make it. I'm not going to lie, like I'll have an idea in my head on a build that I want to do, and then I either don't end up doing it, or I just kind of lose the passion for it. I mean, it happens sometimes, you know. But yeah, you know, definitely let me know what you guys would like to see. Because there's a lot of cool stuff I think that we're going to be doing on the channel, and we're slowly getting steam, getting more people on the YouTube channel. We're getting that much closer to hitting 1,000 subscribers, and you know, all this stuff, it honestly matters. You know, if you guys can help me out, comment on my videos, like them, share them, make sure you're subscribed, because all this stuff All this stuff helps out my YouTube analytics. It helps grow the channel. All that information, having interactive people. This is why I try to ask you guys a lot of questions to get people involved. Because I love to be able to expand my YouTube channel, but at the end of the day, I love being able to talk to people and communicate with the community, and just having cool conversations about nerd-related stuff. But all this stuff, it really does help my channel. And once we hit 1,000 subscribers, it's going to make it a lot easier for me to grow the channel up and bring in even more people. Alright, so we're looking pretty good right now. So now we're going to be moving back a little bit. And again, to figure out what I'm doing here to make changes where we need to make changes, go with the cut line. If you go with the cut line, you can't make a mistake. So we're going off of our half slab cut line. So we're basically looking for rows that are full blocks that should be half slabs. And again, if you follow this rule, you can't make a mistake right here. It's physically impossible. If you do make a mistake, then you're doing something wrong. You're not following that step of looking for these full rows that'll intersect with our half slabs. Because what we're basically doing here is that we're going to take away this row with full blocks and we're going to replace it with half slabs. We'll see just what I mean here in a moment. And we're going to do this for that whole area right here to make everything blend in that much better. So we're pretty much rebuilding this in a much smarter, more conservative way. Rather than rebuilding the whole thing, we used what we had, we built off of that, and then we're making minor revisions to make everything blend in together. And you see that there's going to be a gap there, right behind this area with that. There's going to be a gap right there. Don't worry about that. We'll address that. You just want to make sure that your cut lines are matching up with their pattern of half slabs. And we're just going to go back one row at a time. By the time we're done, everything will match up. It'll look fantastic. Now the same thing here, row of half slabs. And we'll get into the middle and the sides more as we go, but right now we're just doing this one row, moving straight back. This will help us to get where we need to be. You need to basically pick a starting point and work your way to the left and right. And it's a good spot to start right here because now we've got our gaps, so now we're just going to delete 2 rows. And essentially repeat the same process again. We're going to come back with half slabs. Alright, before we add anything in, let's hop over to the other side and we're going to repeat that same process. Because again, just falling into one of our benchmark rules that if you do one thing on one side, you do it on the other. Alright, we've got our top side done. Let's get the bottom side done. We're doing pretty good on time. We've shot by the first 47 minutes. Doesn't feel like we've gone 47 minutes, but it feels like we have been working on this for a little bit. But we've got just over a half hour left, and then we'll be wrapping up today's episode. Like I said, I want to get as much done as I can today, so this way we're not working on this area of the ship for a good 2 weeks. Because there's still a lot more to cover. I don't know how many episodes the Enterprise D is going to end up being. You know, it could be 160, it could be, it could go up to 200, it could be more than that. I really don't know. I know how many recordings I have left, but it's kind of hard to gauge it based off that, because some of those some of those recording sessions I've done, some of them are a minute, some of them are 5 minutes, some of them are 20 minutes. And it doesn't always represent a total number of episodes I have, just recording sessions, because what will end up happening a lot of times when I do that is those recording sessions will be combined into one to make an episode. So we're just going to have to play it by ear to see where we're going to land. You know, again, I'm not rushing the Enterprise D. I figured I've worked on it now for over a year. I want to make sure to do it justice, and whatever time it takes to finish this thing, that's the time it takes to finish it. So now what you can see what we're doing now, we're deleting our very center on the top and bottom, and then the first row on the sides. Because we're basically going to rebuild that. It's really going to be the only area that we're going to fully delete. And I also need to delete these 2 rows right here, because we're going to be deleting the 2 rows on the right, 2 rows on the left, and then the very center. Okay, looking good. Let's hop over to the right side before we go any further and do the same thing. Delete our center. Delete that top row there. And it may not look like it, but we're going to make our half slabs match up with that yellow ring that's going around the engine. I am kind of curious to see how far this is going to go, because there are still a couple of things I do have left to do on the Enterprise D. I have been getting on Minecraft a little bit, but ironically enough, it hasn't been to work on the Enterprise D. I haven't been fully building anything. I've really just been doing small prep work things, because as Strange New Worlds has come out, more and more screenshot. We're getting more and more shots of the interior of the Disco era Enterprise, or Pike's Enterprise, you can call it now, I guess. So there's been a couple of things that I've been trying to replicate. I've actually been trying to replicate the corridors. That's something that that's been a project that I've been working on the last couple of weeks trying to do, and I still haven't cracked it yet, because I fully intend to do another season of the Disco era Enterprise, but making revisions to the ship based off how it looks on the interior in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. But I'm not doing a lot, because I don't want to get really heavy into it, and then, you know, I'm more focused on that than the Enterprise D. But I've also been doing this as a way to kind of just take a short break off of the Enterprise D. But there are still some things that I need to do. Like, for example, I know that, and I've been saying this for a while, I need to add in some more rows of windows. I have to do the registration on the ship for the outside, and then the outside of the ship will be done. And then the only thing that I'll have actually left to do on the interior, I'll need to finish up what I'm going to do with the mall, and then build out the rooms for the medical deck and some of the science labs that we're going to do, and then we'll be done. There's some things that I'm thinking about that I don't know if I'm going to end up doing all those in an actual episode, or maybe if some of the rooms I might end up just saving to show in the tour of the Enterprise. It kind of depends. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to record everything that I do, and then just kind of play it by ear and watch it and see what really needs to be in the tutorial, because I know that there are one or two rooms I ended up doing that with the Cerritos and then also the Disco Air Enterprise, and people really didn't have a problem replicating it. Like I know with the Cerritos, well actually no, I take that back, because I was going to say I don't think I did the mess hall in the tutorial, but I ended up including it in the tour because I built it after the fact. That might have been true. Don't hold it against me if I don't remember. It's all kind of a blur at this point, especially after working on the Enterprise D for so long, but that's kind of what I'm thinking at, because I don't want this to turn into a project that I'm just working on for like 3 or 4 years, because at the end of the day, my YouTube channel isn't just for the Enterprise D specifically, or the Enterprises, or different Enterprises that have been in Star Trek, or just Star Trek in general. I try to work on things that are science fiction based, and pop culture related. You know, that's why we've done a lot of cool things in the past, like we did Tony Stark's Mansion, the Beauty and the Beast Castle. I've done a whole bunch of different things, but it just seems like Star Trek ends up being the thing that people want to see the most. Which is kind of like a weird combination, because like you wouldn't necessarily think people would connect Star Trek to Minecraft, but I guess people share the same feeling that I do, or maybe I could be wrong, but for me, when I played Minecraft, I saw the challenge in building an enterprise on the game, working with these blocks. And, you know, that turned into a 5 or 6 year period to learning how to actually build ships on Minecraft and making it, you know, being proportioned. And I've kind of reached a point where I enjoy the challenge of it. But yeah, you know, I'm not sure where I was going with that, and I apologize. But, you know, at the end of the day, these ships are a lot of fun to build. And, hopefully, I'll be getting more suggestions soon on different stuff that we can do. And then, you know what? If it ends up being more Star Trek stuff, I'm fine with that, because I love Star Trek. To be perfectly honest with you, I could probably build nothing but Starfleet ships for the rest of my life, that I'm doing videos and releasing them on YouTube, and I'd be happy. But, you know, a lot of this, I really try to build stuff that I'm passionate about. So it's not just going to be Star Trek, like I've said, you know. There's going to be a nice mix of things here and there. So again, getting back into what we got going on here. Now that we've got our top taken off, we're going to delete an extra row here on the left and right, and then we're going to do it on the bottom. We're looking for rows that aren't going to work with what we currently have. That's where we're taking so much off the top and bottom now, where we're at, because we're essentially going to have to rebuild that now with half slabs. Now, anywhere that you can blend that in, that you don't have to delete it, don't, because at that point you're just making more work for yourself. But we are starting to slowly get to the point where we're going to end up being by the end of the episode, where this is all just going to be blended in together, and it's going to look awesome and have that nice curve in the front that the engines are so known for in the Enterprise D. And speaking of building things, you know, I had somebody just a couple of weeks ago ask me about what's going on with me building on Starship Evo. I have not abandoned Starship Evo. I feel bad that I haven't done any episodes lately, but I have talked about it. I'm taking a break from Starship Evo because I think that the game has a ton of potential, and I still have it installed on my computer, but at this point I'm waiting for them to basically give me a reason to get on and build a ship. Because as it stands right now, you know, I can spend all this time building a ship on there, but once it's done and you kind of fly around the galaxy for a few minutes, it kind of gets old because there's really nothing else to do. I mean, yeah, you can kill some space pirates here and there, but there's it's still very early on. They're adding in mechanics where you can mine resources for asteroids. They're finally starting to add in mechanics to where you can manipulate the terrain. But it could end up being a couple years before they really get to where the game's potential is going to be. And I think that they need a nice layer of just being able to take a ship anywhere, and be able to land on that planet, mine resources. You know, if you want to look at a great example of what this game should look at, it's No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky is a great example of things that they could do on Starship Evo and do it better. One of my gripes with No Man's Sky is that you go to all these different planets, and yeah, they're all different, but at the same time, they're all kind of the same. One thing that you never see is like alien civilizations and things like that. These are things I'd like to see in maybe Starship Evo, because one of the things that attracts me to Starship Evo is being able to build my own ship. That's one of the gripes that I have with No Man's Sky. You can build your own base, but you can't really build your own ship, which I think is a huge kind of setback. You know, I feel like a game like that, you should be able to do that. And if they do that with Starship Evo, to where you can actually explore the galaxy, land on planets, you know, I think about games like maybe Atlas is a great example. Even though it's apples and oranges, Atlas, you know, when you think about it, you know, you could have procedurally generated maps that you have on a server, and you can go to them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an infinite galaxy like No Man's Sky. It can be a very it can be a much more condensed galaxy, but I think the main thing that it needs at this point is it needs to be fleshed out. That's really what I'm trying to get at. Once the game gets fleshed out and they do a little bit of that, maybe add in some more building options, I'll be all over that game. But currently where it's at now, I've had a lot of fun playing Starship Evo, but my main builder is Minecraft, and I'm just waiting for them to do some stuff to make me really want to get on and play the game. Now, once they do, I have a list of things I'm going to be making on there. So I don't want you guys to think like, oh, he's never going to do a video for Starship Evo again. I will. It's just a matter of when they put these things that I want to see them add into the game into it. Hopefully they will. I think that Starship Evo's got a lot of potential. You know, I've honestly been thinking about that for a while, if I'm going to start implementing more games. I was playing, and I still play at Prehistoric Kingdom, for example, one of my park builder games. I was actually going to start doing videos on that, and then I ended up pumping my brakes on it because I love Prehistoric Kingdom, but that's another game to where it's very on a pre-release basis. They don't have a lot on the game. It doesn't have that meat just yet. I still think it's a lot better than Jurassic World Evolution, but I'm kind of like, I'm waiting to see what they're going to do with it. But I don't know, like, you know, I do think about that from time to time, like being able to bring in other games, but I'm really trying to, you know, add on games and do videos on games that I'm going to be consistently playing. So I've got a list of games I'm keeping my eye on. I do think that one of the games that I know for sure that I probably will start doing videos on whenever it comes out is probably Ark 2. If you go all the way back to my very early videos on YouTube, and those of you that were on my YouTube channel in the beginning know that I actually had a lot more videos on Ark back in the day, and I ended up taking them off. I think I only have one left on the channel now. I kind of just let it ride because there's so many people doing videos on the original Ark that I really didn't think that it would kind of be worth my time to do it all that much. But maybe I'm wrong, you know. But then the other thing too is I kind of got burnt out a little bit on Ark, and I just kind of stopped playing it. But Ark 2, that could very well end up being a game that I start doing a lot of videos on as well. I also just want to make it clear that, any game that I end up adding on my YouTube channel, Minecraft isn't going away. Minecraft is going to be here to stay. I'm just trying to, have a variety of things that I can do on the channel that's relevant. Because one thing that you'll never ever see me do on my YouTube channel is doing like first-person shooters or things like that. Anything that I do, it's going to be within the wheelhouse of things that have already been on the channel, but things that maybe I can expand on. That's why you see me do the reviews on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, because even though it's not necessarily building, I pretty much almost do that anyway in my YouTube videos. We talk a lot about Star Trek. We talk a lot about Star Trek news, because that seems to be the main thing that people like on my channel. We talk a lot about nerd-related stuff with different movies and shows. So that kind of gives me the excuse to where, you know what, let's give it a try doing some reviews and see how people take to it. Because I'm kind of already doing it anyway. But we'll just kind of have to see how it goes. I'm really also trying not to bite off more than I can chew, and have a realistic approach to doing this where I can consistently do it on a weekly basis. And I've been doing pretty good so far. I've only taken a couple of breaks here and there with doing these videos, because I mean, at the end of the day, every single week I'm putting out 4 videos, and now I'm actually doing 5 with the reviews that I do. So that's something I think about too, Anyway, we're looking pretty good right now. Trying to talk a little bit about filler stuff here and there, because there's really not that much to talk about at the moment. We're literally just repeating the same process that we have. We're going with our cut line, and we're basing that off of a half slab pattern. Don't worry about that gap right there. We may address that. We may honestly just leave it. Let's just worry right now about filling in what we got, and then we'll make whatever other adjustments we're going to need. Let's fill all that in. I'm going to do that off camera, and then we're going to come back. We're not making any more adjustments to the ship or anything. In between, we're just filling in what we have before. So I did that off camera just to catch us up. And now we're going to do what I talked about. We're going to add in, I think, a row or 2 on the back end of the yellow strip to make it to where what it was before. Because it doesn't need to be that thick. It only really needs to be about 2 or 3 blocks thick. Anything more than that is going to be too much. Again, we're going to do this gradually, so let's just add 1 row on the back of each engine, and then we'll take a look at it. If we want to add another row, we can add another row. Alright, we got a couple more rows to do, and then we're going to zoom out and take a look at this thing. But we are in pretty good shape so far. It doesn't look that bad with the 3, but I'm not going to lie, we might bring that back to where it was before, just being too wide. And see, this is the only thing I don't like about my engines, and I don't think it's necessarily my fault. But as you zoom up, looking at them from the top, it looks very flat. It doesn't have that curve in the front like it should have. That's the only thing I don't like about my engines. But what's weird about that is that when you start to come down and look at them from the sides, it looks perfect. So I mean, I don't know. I'm my own worst critic when it comes to building ships. I might have people come back and be like, well, you're just being hard on yourself. And maybe that's true. Maybe I am being hard on myself. But, I think having that attitude of trying to do the best that I can, that's, you know, what helps to build the most. But I mean, take a look at this thing, the curve on the engine, especially from the sides. I mean, you can't tell me that doesn't look exactly like the Enterprise D. Alright, so now we're just bringing all of our details up here. We're going to add another row to the blue here. Just bring it up by one row. Not doing anything fancy. There's actually another blue block down at the very bottom that I missed. I need to come back and fix that. Alright, we're looking pretty good. We got one more side to do. Alright, let's zoom out and take a look. Yeah, I mean, that looks fantastic. It's not done. We still need to do a little bit more with the detailing, which I don't know if we'll have time to get into that on today's episode, but I think that's what the other episodes that we'll be getting into will really cover. So now we're getting into the tail end of today's episode. I've ultimately decided that we're going to take off another 2 rows in the front here, directly in front of our yellow. We're essentially just going to be moving our yellow strip up again because I decided that there was too much of the white and it didn't need to be that long. So we're just going to make a slight adjustment here. And again, if you're happy with the length, you can disregard this part. You can disregard any step that I take over the course of this tutorial. At the end of the day, this is more along the lines designed to give you ideas on what you could do with your Enterprise D. You want to copy this thing one for one, everything that I do, go for it. But if you don't feel like that you need to do it, don't worry about it. At the end of the day, make this thing your own build. Make whatever changes you want to make, because at the end of the day, you know, this is just supposed to be fun, a way to take our mind off some things that's going on in the world. This is one of the things I love about Minecraft. And not even just Minecraft, I think it's just being creative. To focus your attention on something for an extended period of time, whether that's building something in Minecraft, building a model, drawing something, building something, you know, it's very therapeutic and can really help take your mind off things and just kind of relieve any type of stress that's going on. This is one of the reasons why I spend so much time on Minecraft, because it really, especially in times where I'm very, very stressed out, this is I wouldn't say coping mechanism for me, but it's a way for me just to kind of vent out any of that, where it's a break from reality where I can just think about something else, and doing that, it kind of, you know, refills my battery a little bit. Honestly, this is my main reason why I love playing Minecraft, combined with I really enjoy the challenge and working with blocks. Because it's crazy, like, you guys never see me do any like survival maps or anything like that. And like, I used to do that stuff when I first started playing Minecraft, but I've pretty much gotten to the point now where I just do builds in creative, and that's really what I enjoy doing. This is why, you know, I play Planet Coaster or any type of game, or like Starship Evo as an example, any game where I can build something. I love doing that. That's probably my favorite thing to do in video games, period. Um, if I can do something creative like building, I'm all over it. So alright, now we've got our back side done. We've brought it forward by 2, or in the front with the yellow. Now we're going to add in 2 rows of white concrete on the back. So we're literally just moving up our pattern by 2. So I talk about, once you learn your patterns, it becomes very easy to make changes, because you're literally just repeating the same step. You're just bringing it forward, whether it's by 1 or 2, whatever the case may be. In this case, we're moving it forward by 2. And you may not even think it's necessary to even do this. This is why I say too, if everything I'm doing in today's episode, any stuff you see me do, you don't think I need to do it, or if you think that you don't want to add it on your build, don't do it, At the end of the day, there's 1,000,001 ways to build these ships out. This is just what I found was the best way that worked out for me in the moment when I was building this ship. I take a lot of time to look for details in my ships to see what's missing, what I can add, to help bring that ship to life a little bit more. In this case right now we're adding in a red stripe. Excuse me. And you'll see me doing a lot more of this in the next upcoming episodes, because what I ended up doing, I was looking online for different screenshots of the Enterprise D, and I noticed something within Star Trek The Next Generation and then also the movie Generations, is that, the Enterprise D really does not have a lot of detailing. So what ended up happening is that, for me anyway, looking at the ship, my ship looked very, very plain. But I was staying very true to how the ship looked. The only thing that I was really missing was the Aztecing that the Enterprise D has. But I've decided not to do that because I didn't feel that I could do it to where it would look good. So I just decided to skip that. But then again, we're left with a very big problem of, what do you do to detail your ship? How do you get around that? And what I ended up doing, and this, you can do this for anything, any type of ship or craft. Look at pictures of toys, believe it or not, because toys can give you that extra bit of detail maybe that was missing before. Because what I found with toys sometimes is that they'll have different types of detailing, which maybe isn't necessarily accurate within canon. But what's great about that is that it's giving you an extra bit of detailing to work with. And that's what I'm doing right here. I found a picture on the internet of a toy of the Enterprise D, and it looked very beautiful. It had a series of red pinstriping going along the ship in different areas that wasn't necessarily there on the show Next Generation or in the movie. And when I just saw it, I was like, man, this is what my ship's missing. And I just decided to add it on. So, what I'm basically getting at here is that think outside the box with things like that. Don't set your references to something that was specifically from the show or movie, or whatever the case may be. Be open and maybe outside the box in what you can find with that reference material, because you might come across something that you can make work with your builds. Because at the end of the day, I feel like I can get away with stuff like this because, the ship's not real. You can make slight revisions like this. It's okay, One of the things I don't really care for within, I guess, fandom today is that people, any revision you make, it's I forget the term that they call it, where basically they're overwriting it. And it's it's okay to make changes to something. You know, it doesn't have to always look the same. Not everything has to match up 110%. And especially when it comes to ships, you know, it's kind of important, you know, to have a slight spin on it. You know, even with the original Star Trek movies, like if you watch um, Star Trek The Voyage Home and then Star Trek um, The Undiscovered Country, you know, there were pretty significant changes with how the Enterprise A looked. You know, it didn't look exactly the same. You could say the same thing about the Enterprise D with how the Enterprise D looked from the Next Generation to the movie generations. The bridge was significantly upgraded. That was really the main thing, though. The rest of the ship was pretty spot on with how it looked on the show, other than the lighting. But the bridge was really the most significant change. But they got away with it and nobody questioned it, is what I'm getting at. That you can make small changes like that, you know, be able to express your creative freedom where you feel that it needs it. But using a reference like a toy can be very, very beneficial in giving you that extra oomph of detail where you feel that you need it. So we're looking pretty good. We've added in our red stripe to get a little bit of detail in here. Now, just to see how it looks, I think what I want to do is add in a row of white concrete going all the way around the back side of where the yellow is, and just see how it looks, just to give an extra layer of depth with color. Because, you know, with this white concrete, as we zoom out, it's going to be very subtle to the white quartz, which is what I want. You know, and it's kind of funny because originally when I was going to build the Enterprise D, I was going to build it out of white concrete, but then I realized that there was going to be shapes that I wasn't going to be able to achieve without using half slabs, and I didn't want to run into the same problem that I had when I built the Disco Era Enterprise, where I did it in white concrete. I did it in white concrete, but then the areas that I used the half slabs, you know, you could see the differences in the pieces. Basically, it didn't look like it was one ship. So that's why, you know, the ship is white rather than gray like it looks on the show, because that was by design, because I wanted everything to blend in together and being able to use the gray as a way to highlight the rest of the ship. But, you know, I think that looks pretty good. We've got more work to do on the engines, but as far as the shape goes, we're there. You know, from the side here, this is perfect. I showed you guys a few minutes ago, the only gripe that I have with my engines is looking at it from the top view, they look very squished down. But I think that at the end of the day, there's not really that much I can do about it. Sometimes even if you're unhappy with something, you if you can't do anything else with it, you just kind of got to move on from it. You know what I mean? Unless you're set that you know what you can do to fix it. And this is, I think, just one of those cases where I'm happy enough with it to where I'm never really going to be looking at the ship from the top view all that much, so it's not that big of a deal. But the main thing that I'm focused on here is the side profile of the engine, which I think we absolutely nailed. The only time it's not perfect is when we look at it from the top. And again, it doesn't look that bad, but it's not perfect. But it's something I can live with. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this super long episode. Longest episode I've ever done, by the way. But I hope you guys enjoyed it and appreciated the effort and the fact that I'm trying to get through this stuff as much as I can. But we still have more to get through on this build before we can call it done. But we're just going to take this one episode at a time. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up today. I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. And if you did enjoy this content, please help me out. Hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Drop a comment below. Let me know how you feel about this episode. Any comments, questions, definitely drop them below. Any ship builds that you want to see me do or builds in general, be sure to drop that in the Discord under build suggestions. And also, new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you get notified when my new videos drop. And speaking of new episodes, you can always catch my new Minecraft videos dropping Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me today. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And, of course, I'll catch you in the next episode. And what did you make in Minecraft today? Let me know in the comments section.